Romance will also bring more romance. I would never date a man going through a divorce, and I'd never date a man with small children.
Why do you think that the minute you put your speed dating event up, the women jump in to get their reservations and buy their tickets? They probably do it because they know if they don't, they're going to get squeezed out because there'll be a waiting list, right? Why do the guys wait? Why do they make us sweat?
Most men wait until the last minute about a lot of things anyway. Your type is usually what you're familiar with. And what you're familiar with is usually based off of either your parents' relationship with each other, or how you were loved, or your previous relationship.
And the biggest mistake we make as women in dating?
The biggest mistake that women say, I think women are more selective.
Can you negotiate character, honesty, integrity? Can you negotiate that, or is it either the guy's got it or he doesn't? Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid's Coach podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ferman, inviting you to transform me to we through the process of doing dating better. I'm super excited today because I get to have one of my buddies here, one of my matchmaking buddies who does her magic in both Cedar Rapids, Iowa and Scottsdale, Arizona. Welcome to the show, Cat Cantrill.
Oh, Julie, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for asking me. I'm a huge super fan of you, and it's just a huge compliment of being here with you. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're so welcome. I've been very impressed with you too. And I didn't realize that you've been doing what you do since 2015.
Yes.
That's a long time. So you're from Scottsdale, I read.
Yes. Originally from Scottsdale.
What have you been doing in Cedar? How do you get from Scottsdale to Cedar Rapids, Iowa?
A man. Usually that's how those things work. Usually. Yeah, my ex-husband actually, I had met him in college, and he was originally from Detroit, Michigan. And so I had left Arizona and then settled in Detroit. And then recession of 06, 07 led us to Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And then a year later, I was going through a divorce and just decided to stay and raise my kids. So that's kind of how, very short of how I ended up here, but yes.
Well, I'm always encouraging everybody in my world, especially people who are single, who are out there dating, to whatever your story is, put it in a tiny little 20-second, 30-second.
Yeah.
We should all have like the 5-minute version, the 2-minute version, the 30-second version, and the 5-second version.
Yes.
Got married, divorced, here I am. So
That's exactly right. Yes. Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be great?
well, now, since you're a person who has been through the process of getting married,
Yes.
getting divorced, and getting on the other side of it, and
Yeah.
I can imagine being the matchmaker who decides to get a divorce. That's a big challenge, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And for myself, I mean, I was lucky enough that it was of really when I met my now husband, he's really the one that my relationship with him is really kind of what started really niching down into helping people with love and relationships and matchmaking. So I was lucky enough when going through my divorce, I was not a matchmaker, but because of the experiences that I had as a single woman that led me to my now husband, I feel that work really, I use that personal experience that I had in order to, also to help my clients. So
That's probably the reason why I noticed you all those years ago, because you have a lot of authenticity, and you can tell that you're in this not just to make a bunch of money, but because you care about people. So when I got into it, and similarly, I had pain from the process of being single and the frustrations, and I wanted to ease other people's pain. It sounds like you can relate to that.
Yeah. I always tell people that I love to be like the Disneyland Fast Pass, so that, hopefully when people come to me, then I can help them alleviate a lot of the pain that I had to go through by giving them the tools in order to like skip the line, is what I always say.
I love it. If you could give advice to the young girl that you were when you were out there initially, what would your advice be?
Well, I had to learn this the hard way. And I think that everybody has their own particular journey, and the information that we listen to has to come at the right time. And I think for me, if I was to look back to my younger self when I was in the trenches of going through the divorce, is really to understand, to give myself hope. I think that when you are single for a very long time or you've gone through a divorce, it can feel hopeless. So giving her hope and letting her know that love is out there. One of the sayings my mom used to say is she would be like, "Oh, just be patient. He isn't done cooking yet." Like that would be always her thing with me. He isn't done cooking yet. He's out there. I promise you. So I think hope. And then second is to not look for romance outside of myself, to really start to build my own life. And what does that look like? And that's kind of, I had to figure that out. I figured that out later in the game, which ended up bringing my husband into my life. But I feel like so many people are searching for those answers outside when they can do so much for themselves.
This is really interesting, Kat, because it's very common that we talk about on this podcast and all of our consultations that we need to love ourselves before we can really accept love from another person. But I hadn't really thought about it in terms of romancing ourselves.
Mhm.
Now, I just interviewed a woman all about sex. Okay. So we were talking about, and I asked her, what should do who are born again virgins, right? And she said, well,
Right.
let's familiarize ourselves with ourselves, right? Let's do that. But there's a difference between that and romancing oneself.
Yes. I think for me, it's when we talk about romancing ourselves, I think it's always, you meet people and they're like, I'm not going to do this thing until I have a partner. I'm not going to do this thing until I have a partner. And for me, I always push back and I always say, why are you waiting until you have a partner? Why are you not allowing yourself the joy that these experiences can bring to you as a singleton? And that's okay. And there's so many different ways to put yourself out there and find other singles and you can experience life in a way. But for me, it's like the more you pouring in yourself and you're building this like romantic life, that when you are putting yourself out there and you are seeking out a partner, that then when they look at your life from the outside in, they're like, wow, she has an amazing life or he has an incredible life. I love what she's doing or I love what he's doing. And it just romance will also bring more romance. And if you don't know what romancing yourself is about, how can you even know what it feels like when someone is bringing romance to your life? If you're not, you can't drink from a well that's empty. You want
Yeah,
to be able to be having enough romance in your own life so that when it comes across your way, that you know exactly what it is and you're like, yep, I want more of that.
beautiful. Now, how did you meet this guy that you're married to? Dying to know.
I know. I met him online actually.
Love that.
Yes.
Which
Yep.
site was it?
Plenty of fish out of all of them.
Love it. Gotta love
Yeah.
it. I knew
And
about Plenty
I
when it first started, like in the guy's apartment.
say that again.
The guy who started Plenty of Fish, I forgot his
Yeah.
name right now, but he started it with like a laptop in his apartment.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it started very, very, very. It was the first time that an internet dating site was going to offer what they offered without paying. In other words, it was
Oh,
really shocking to the industry because they were going to make their money on advertisers. And then, of course, that took off, and now there are plenty of others doing the same. So,
right.
how did it happen? Did you reach out to him? Did he reach out to you?
He reached out to me actually, and it was one of those, it was back in the day when it's all desktop, right? You got emailed your matches for the day and then you corresponded with each other through email. It wasn't an app back then. And so he had reached out to me initially and because we had matched and he had reached out to me initially and started kind of bringing some romance initially right off the bat in our correspondence back and forth, and we talked for about 2 weeks through email and then we were able to meet face to face after that.
Awesome. And how long after you first met did you decide to move in together or get married?
So I had two rules because I was single for 8 years. I was a divorced mom raising my two kids. I had a business at the time that I was running. And when I met him, I had two rules. Number one, I would never date a man going through a divorce. And number two, I would never date a man with small children. And he had both. He was going through a divorce and he had a 6-year-old. And I remember having that conversation where I was like, what he was and what he how he made me feel was worth exploring, to be able to kind of push those things aside and see and just be curious about where the connection was going to lead me. And thank goodness I didn't have those as like an absolute no. And I just want to just kind of say this too, because I know that dating somebody through a divorce, I know that usually the industry advises people not to date other people through a divorce. And I always think it's just a case by case basis. Is the person worth it? And we don't know what their story is leading up to the divorce. They might have been in a loveless marriage for 10 years for all we know. And so I think it's always a case by case basis. And thank goodness yes, and explored that connection with him. Now, he had been we had agreed that we were never going to get married because we were already married once before. We already had our children. We decided that no, we were not going to get married. And so we had moved in together. I think it was about a year and a half. We had moved in together and we did not get engaged until I started to become a matchmaker.
Wow. So how did the kids get along?
Wonderfully. We'll see. And there was enough of an age gap between them. So my kids, when we met, were 15. Mine were 15 and 12, and he had a 6-year-old. So there was enough of a gap that there wasn't any issue, that they were in different stages of life. Everyone got along, and they still do. They all love each other very much.
Oh, that's beautiful. How did
Yeah.
he feel about you launching a matchmaking company? He must be a very secure man.
Yes. It was his idea, actually. It was his idea. And because he has me all, he had witnessed all of the work that I had been doing with coaching and with helping people. And it just was like that extra step. And I remember, because I was a coach first, matchmaker second. So as a coach, people were naturally asking me, well, are you a matchmaker? Or, would you consider matching? And I always pushed against the idea because I didn't know. Again, because you are dealing with single men. And no, it was my husband that was like, you would be really good at this. Like, you should absolutely take that step and forth. And so, yeah, with his blessing. So, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. One of the reasons that I'm excited to chat with you, Kat, is you do matchmaking, you do coaching, but also, no surprise, you do some image work with
I
people.
do.
And one of the
Yes.
things I've really noticed about you, you always look amazing. You always dress
Julie.
beautifully. And to your podcast yet. I noticed when I was putting this together, oh, wait a minute, I haven't listened to Dear Matchmaker yet. That's the name of your podcast, right?
Yes. Yes.
So I'm very interested in picking that up, but you're a perfect person to ask about image because you always have it handled. What are
Oh.
the common mistakes that, let's say, women are making in image in dating?
How long do we have? I'm saying that the most of love and respect, because I think that, especially when we have been through a divorce or we have gone through a separation or we have lost a spouse, it can be really easy for us to get stuck in the being like, well, if they can't accept me for who I am now, then they're not worth my time and effort. And I think that that's the mistake that women make, is that they don't back to when they were single before, and the effort and the time and energy that they put into themselves on how to make a great first impression. And with the first impression, I think that women need to reflect on how I'm presenting, what type of message am I sending, what type of possible impression am I making in a romantic way. Because I think that business, Sally and dating Sally are two completely different women. And I think that they have a difficult time disconnecting the two and understanding that you can be the same woman, but you could be this presentation when you are on LinkedIn, and you could be on this presentation when you are setting up your matchmaking profile or your online dating profile. So I think it's giving themselves permission to go back into themselves of being like, what would it feel like to have a different presentation, to feel feminine, to feel flirty, to feel open and warm and welcoming? Like, is that the present, that's the presentation that we want from women. We don't want them to appear that they've got walls up around them, that they have a presentation that's stoic, in which like men feel like they can't approach. So it I feel that women do get stuck in this mindset, and it's just reminding them that it's okay to go back into your days of, feeling fun and feeling a little flirty and giving yourself a presentation of that you are open for business.
I'm thinking of two clients right now. One of them is very, very conservative, always dresses in a sort of boxy, like Brooks Brothers kind of
Oh,
business.
sure.
And there's just no femininity there. Her hair is never done in any kind of a feminine way. She just sort of looks like a banker.
Right.
And men aren't responding to her
Yeah.
in a romantic way. I don't think I've ever seen a man light on this particular woman. And then there's one on the other side who's too flamboyant, too booby, too sexy, almost like trying too hard to be sexy. And she's in her 50s. Both of these women are in their 50s, actually. And the feeling that I get from the guys is that why does she have to try that hard?
Mhm.
Why does she have to wear something that's so revealing? What would you say? I know what you'd say to the one who looks like a boring banker. What would
Yeah.
you say to the woman who's got a little bit too much of the va 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 on?
I would ask her why. I would ask her why. Let's talk about what you're wearing and why do you wear it? And let's talk about the message that you're sending about what you're wearing. And I think a lot of the times women don't understand what this possibly, whatever they're wearing could possibly, the type of impression that it may lead or the message it possibly might send. And so that I would ask her why, because there's some insecurity that's there for sure. There is definitely some insecurity within herself that she feels that she, with like being who she is as a woman, that she feels she has to, that maybe her only assets that she has to offer is what she's showing. And so having that honest conversation with her, being like, let's talk about what you have to offer. And that realizing that, yes, you are beautiful, but it's okay that you don't have to give them everything. Like, let them, we want some mystery there, right, Julie? We want a little bit of mystery. So what they're like, wanting to come back and wanting to get to know her more and having some curiosity. And when you're putting it all out there, it's enough for curiosity for sure.
Very good. I like your approach to it. Now, what would you say to the gentlemen? What are the common mistakes the boys are making in dating?
As far as their image is concerned, or
Yeah. About image,
yeah, yeah. I think just acting like you care. I think that
pretending.
yes, I think that men can also try too hard. I think that men can sometimes also give off that energy depending on what they're wearing. But the common complaint that I hear from women, and I'm sure you do too, is that he showed up wearing this. Like, why? Because it makes her feel that she's not important or she's not seen or that he hasn't put forth any special effort in order to come see her. I always tell, whenever I'm running speed dating events, I beg the men, please don't look like you just came from Home Depot. Please. Just put on a button-down shirt and a nice pair of chinos and a good pair of shoes, by the way, gentlemen. Shoes matter, and then she'll feel like you showed up, like you cared to be there. I think that, again, I think men also can have that mindset. Well, if this is what I wear all the time, so why not? But again, we want to make a great first impression, and we can't make a great first impression if we act like we don't even care enough about ourselves and how we show up.
I'm thinking of this one gentleman who has come to, I think, every event I've ever invited him to. And he always wears a sport coat and a tie. And the tie is actually a little bit over the top,
Yes.
but women notice it.
Yes.
And they'll say, I've seen that guy before. He's like the one guy who gets all dressed up. And they will go over and say hello and compliment him on the fact that he actually took a shower, trimmed his little beard, did all
Yes.
better to be overdressed than underdressed, right?
Agreed. And even when I'm styling men for online dating profiles, they're like, well, I only wear a suit, maybe 4 times a year. I'm like, yeah, but you wear a suit, right? So let's do a look of you in a suit because I promise you, you will stand online hands down in a suit because the majority of the men that are out there are not willing to put forth that much, extra effort on their dating profile. So, yes,
Isn't
absolutely wear
it a
that suit.
wonderful? Isn't it a wonderful tip to get when you're studying a guy's profile and you see the suit shot or the sport coat
Yes.
shot, and you're like, okay, he can do it if he has to. It's like, okay, if somebody dies, I have to take him to the funeral or to a wedding, whatever, he knows
Right.
how to do it. He doesn't,
Exactly.
try to fit into a sport coat that he had been wearing in high school and it just happened to still be in his closet.
Or at his sister's wedding or something like that. Yes. Yeah.
All right, very
Yeah.
good. I love your advice. And when in doubt, take a little extra time. How about the beards and the trimming of the beards and the bushy beards and all of this? What do you have to say about the beards?
I think having a conversation about the beards is something I often because I'm in the Midwest and a lot of men in the Midwest have beards because of it's cold and the ruggedness and the that kind of some of the men that are out here. And I think that if you have a beard, if you're gonna commit to have one of the long ZZ top beards, then just know that a lot of women are not going to say yes because there's one of those the long beards that tells like a woman that you're hiding something. And so
Hmm.
I think that subconsciously a lot of women don't like the really long beards because they feel like possibly he could be hiding something. I think if you're going to have a beard, make sure it's well manicured, make sure that and it actually looks good on you because and I think that some men look better with beards. I do believe that too. So have an assessment, ask your friends about your beard. Like, what do you think? Do you like me with the beard? Do you like me without a beard? And tell them to be honest with you because sometimes you can be attached to the beard just like everyone gets attached to certain things but sometimes it is in your best interest to take off the beard. So but if you're gonna have it, make sure it's well manicured.
Yes, I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever heard a woman say to me, that guy is so good looking. He would be so much better looking if he just grew a beard. I've never heard
Yeah.
that, right?
Yes.
So interesting. All right. And sometimes we get attached to our look.
Yes.
You are one of the rare matchmakers who produces events, and I want to applaud you for that because
Oh, thanks, Julie.
it's not easy to do.
No, it is not.
What are the biggest challenges? I know what they are, but what are your biggest challenges in producing events?
So a few things. I have learned that one of the challenges is the venue itself, right? So finding a venue that is willing to be collaborative and not here's our space, rent it. And I think that the more eyes we can get on the better. So that I love to collaborate with venues that are willing to advertise, talk about it, put up posters, those types of things. But it's difficult. It's venues that are willing to collaborate. So that I find has another is of course, I'm sure is finding the men. That's always a common struggle is where are the men at? They do come through. It gives me a lot of anxiety, like up to the bare, last second they end up pulling through. But that is a little bit of that is a little bit of a pain point sometimes is finding the men. But
And then the demographic. If you're doing 20s and early 30s, it's finding the women that's the
that's
challenge.
exactly right. I was just going to say that. That is right.
It's
Yes,
just a function of who it's supply and demand. That's all it is. And so because the great creator makes ladies look so incredibly tantalizing during their years of fertility, that's by design, right? The great creator wants babies. So all the guys, whether they have a shot at that cute young girl or not, God love them, they try. So the young women get inundated with opportunities and they don't find the need to go through the awkwardness that it can sometimes be to go to
that's
a,
right.
and they don't want the wrong guys hitting on them, so they just don't go. Same thing happens with the older guys,
That's
right?
right. That's right.
Do you think that the minute you put your speed dating event up, the women jump in to get their reservations and buy their tickets? They probably do it because they know if they don't, they're going to get squeezed out because there'll be a waiting list, right?
Right. That's right.
The guys wait. Why do they make us sweat?
I've been trying to answer this question forever. I have, I think I have a hypothesis, and I think it's because I think most men wait until the last minute about a lot of things anyway. And I think that, um, in my experience, it's I've had men that have inquired, being like, "Oh yeah, I want to go to that thing. Send me the link. You send them the link and then they sit on it and you know that they want to go. But I don't know if it's because they want to say they're like, what if something pops up, or is this really the best use of my time? Or maybe I should be doing, maybe something else better will come my way.
I think that's
So
what it is.
you
I
think
think that's
so?
what it is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think they're waiting for Pamela Anderson to fall in their lap so that they won't
Oh,
have to
sure.
go through the uncomfortable process of yet another dating event. So, they take and they put it in their calendar and it's getting closer and they're like, yeah, I know I should do that thing. I know Kat will be disappointed if I know Julie's going to be bummed out if I don't go. I probably need to
Right.
go. But they'll wait till
Right.
the last minute and Pamela Anderson did not fall in my lap. Darn it. I guess I need to go to a dating event. And they'll sign up for it. It's just bizarre. I'm guessing, but I think that's what it is. Nobody really
Yeah.
likes to have to go to a singles event. And yet people know that it's smart to go to a singles event.
Yes.
Having done a whole lot of these speed dating events, what would you
Yes.
say? What are the mistakes that people are making at your speed dating events?
How they show up. So their physical presentation, again, wanting to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and how you show up. Second is, so I always have, I do my event, I always do probably about like a 10-minute speech to everybody to set everybody straight. And because I have learned that it's not necessarily the men. The men are way more open. The men will say yes way more than the women do. What I tell people is that your goal is not to sit there across the table saying, is this somebody that I can make out with? Like, that's not, I mean, that's great, but that's not your only gauge on whether or not you want to say if it's a connection or not. So, what I always tell people is not to go off of that, but to go off of curiosity. So, when they leave the table, did they leave you and you go, oh, that they were a really interesting person? Like, I would love to get to know more about them, or I would love to have a deeper conversation with them. That is truly the piece that you should pay attention to. And if that's the case, then mark yes. Because worst case scenario is that you're going to go on a date and then you're going to find out that, okay, possibly you're not a good fit, but at least you explored the possibility. Because I think people are paying attention to all of the wrong things when it comes to speed dating. So I always tell people to remind themselves of the curiosity piece.
When they're paying attention to the wrong things,
Hmm.
I think the things that they're paying attention to are related to ego or status.
Yes, there is some of that. I am sure that is a part of it, even though they would probably never admit that. I had one woman in particular, if I remember, at my last speed dating event, she had marked that she was interested in six of the men. Fantastic, wonderful. The day after, she sends me an email saying, never mind. None of these men are at my level. I'm looking for a silver fox who's super fit. I was like, okay, well. So I think that ego does for sure play a part of it. Yes.
I think ego and status is a big part of the mistakes that men and women are both making. When a guy hesitates to extend an invitation to a woman who might be he attracted to her, but he's like way attracted to that other woman over there. He's gonna put the girl over there on his list. And don't you find in doing these speed dating events that the same three girls get picked by everybody and the same three guys get picked by everybody?
Yeah, I call them connectors because, and it's sometimes that you least expect. It's not like at this last I had a gentleman who was not your typical 6 foot kind of guy. He was probably 5'7", little receding hairline, was wearing like a smoker's jacket. Like I could tell he put forth some effort, but he was from London and he had an accent. And all of those ladies. He was my super connector, and I would have never predicted it. But yes, I'm like, oh well, we've got our two super connectors. This is the man that connected with most, and this is the woman that connected with most. But yeah, we definitely. But it's always for me. It's always unpredictable. I never know. I think the most attractive one would be the super connector, but sometimes that's not the case.
It's bizarre. Every time I've done speed dating, whether it's in person or virtual, I always have this experience where there aren't a lot of natural matches because he picked her, but she picked someone else and he picked, and so afterwards, it's an enormous amount of work for me because I go back and I say, you know what, Kat, I'm so sorry. The guys that you picked, I didn't get yeses from them, but there were two others who really wanted to meet you. I'm going to share their profiles and take a look and see. And then sometimes if you
Mhm.
study up the whole profile, you see more of interest. And that way I'm able to make dates happen. But the people who got the most selections are very often the people who don't say yes to anybody.
That's right.
I see
I
that all
love
the
that.
time because they're the usual suspects.
Right. Yes.
They go online and they get picked all the time. And so it's like, they think it's always going to be that way. And they don't commit because there's going to be a bigger, better deal around the corner,
Yeah.
all of these things. But I encourage people to go to these events and
Yes.
we're on the side of yes and get on real dates with people and
Yes.
see how it happens. So even though you've been doing this since 2015, you're still eager to continue doing events.
Yeah, I've become a little more picky. I'm not gonna lie. Again, being picky about venues and what I just to do, but I think that there is a superpower of meeting people in real life. And there's so much science and research out there that says that they, happily married or coupled people who have been together for a long period of time that have successful long-term relationships, that most of them would admit that they wouldn't say yes to each other online because they've met each other in real life. And I think that you could swipe left on somebody online, but you can bump into them at an event and just have the instant connection just because of who they are as a person. And I think that you're just denying yourself so many opportunities by not going to events. So yes, 100%.
Absolutely. There's something that you are proficient at helping us understand, which is how is it that we unconsciously can get in our own way as single people who are out there dating? Common pitfalls?
So I would say there are a few things. So number one is, and I think I'm sure maybe you have talked about this too, is letting go of your type. That your
Mm.
type is usually what you're familiar with. And what you're familiar with is usually based off of either your parents' relationship with each other or how you were loved or your previous relationship. We are attracted to what we're with. So number one is letting go of the type for sure. You've got to let it go and allow other opportunities with other different types of people because you never know what might happen.
Now, when you talk about type, are you talking about physical type or are you talking about persona? Oh, I always go out with guys who have master's degrees or more. Is it like both?
Both. I think a little bit of both because, again, attraction can grow over time. So and I think it's different for men and women. I think men do need to initially have that initial attraction, 100%. But I think with women, it's different. I think that if she likes being around him and she likes how she feels when she's around him, giving him a couple of more dates to see if that attraction will grow, because usually it does. So I think that I always tell when people leave hand in hand out of my office, they're like, I would have never said yes to this person. I'm like, well, then great, I've done my job. Because if you would have found the typical person, then, why would you need assistance? Right. So, I love it when people are leaving arm in arm with people that they normally wouldn't have said yes to. So, yeah. So, for sure, I would say both for sure.
Very, very similar. I encourage women to give a guy 3 dates.
Yeah, same.
If you're seeing that he has evidence of the most important criteria that really matter. And
Yes.
that I think is from the matchmaker's perspective, my first job when I'm interviewing somebody is I don't care how long the list is, but let's boil it down to the things that top 3, 4, not more than 5 things. You'd rather be single forever than partner with somebody who doesn't have these qualities. And the reasons why we're vetoing people, especially as women, like what you said was, I think, true, Kat, that it's the women who can be more selective.
Yeah.
And it's the backwards way to date
Right.
because, as my husband says, we only have a shot with the guy who thinks we're hot. And it's true. It's just true. How many times have you presented a photo to a gentleman client and you're so excited to make the introduction and he's like, I don't think so. Not my cup of tea. Who else do you have? And you're like, but no, no,
Yeah.
no, she's not, because I'm not attracted to her. Who else do you have? We can't get them to do it. And the biggest mistake we make as women in dating, from my perspective, what do you think that is?
The biggest mistake that women say, I think women are more selective. I think they say no more often. I think they need to start saying yes.
That's right. And why we are saying no to men is because we're paying attention to something that's way down on the list.
That's right.
I very rarely will see height in the top three critical criteria.
Right.
Will very rarely see out earns me,
Yes.
top three critical criteria. When we date and partner with a man who doesn't out earn us, certain challenges that come with that, nothing that can't be negotiated.
Right.
But can you negotiate character, honesty, integrity? Can you negotiate that, or is it either the guy's got it or he doesn't?
Right.
So that's what I think is the biggest
Yeah.
mistake that we make as women, is overlooking a guy for something silly. And the biggest mistake men make, what would you say, Cat Cantrill?
Oh gosh, the biggest mistake men make. I think that not like paying attention to the wrong things as well. I think that if just because she looks great or she may look great on your arm or is 20 years younger, which I don't do any of that, by the way, but I think that they're paying attention to things that in the long term do not matter because looks fade, people get older. You know, at the end of the day, it's one of the things where is this the type of person that will drive you to chemo? Is this the type of person that will be there for you, you know, as you're sick and giving you chicken noodle soup, right? That's what we're looking for in somebody.
And I think you're right. When I think about what I think men do is their biggest mistakes, is basically just shooting out of their league. And God love them, they can't help it. They see a bright, shiny object and they have to go for it, right?
Oh, sure. Yes.
But
Yes.
part of that is just biological, right?
Right.
It's biological.
Yeah.
And then the other part of it, I do think, is related to status and ego. When a guy walks into a gala and he's got a woman like Kat on his arm, it's like, whoa, hello, did I make it or what? You know? And there's something to that.
Yeah.
To be looked up to be admired, to be respected. He instantly has street cred when he walks into the room and he's got a lovely woman. Now, a woman might overlook a guy who's 5'7" without really thinking about it. She might be 5'2".
Right.
So, but she's worried somebody's going to think, oh, she went for the short guy. She must have settled, right?
Yes.
We worry about that.
Oh,
Oh,
yes.
Cat ended up with the big tall guy and he's got a great job and he lives in the big house up the hill. Oh, she must be amazing. Instead
Right.
of, yeah, she went with the guy who has a plumbing contracting company. He's really sweet and he makes really good barbecue ribs,
Right.
right? But they're thinking she's settled. Now, this guy could have a plumbing contracting business with 14 trucks and he does all the neighborhood, right? And he's doing
Right.
great. But it's what people will think that drives us to overlook somebody. But these
Yes.
days, women have to, and men have to pay attention to a larger collection of people because of these stupid apps. The same people get picked all day long and they get spoiled and then they pick nobody.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. The paradox of choice for sure.
Mhm. So how do you handle life given that you have Cedar Rapids, Iowa, and
Yep.
then you have Scottsdale? So do you have homes
Yeah.
in both places? How do you do it?
So, being originally from Scottsdale, so the Scottsdale office is relatively new this year. So it kind of started back in June. It's been it's growing, but yeah. So I just go out there and stay with family. So it's really easy. I mean, long term goals is that I'm going to move out there full time. It's a long-term plan, probably next year and a half to 2 years. But yeah, it's really easy. I go and I stay with family and they love when I come and stay with them. And then they give me a car to drive. And then I usually stay anywhere between a week to a week and a half, make some headway, make some connections, and then come back to Iowa.
Yep, you're going to do the same kind of thing I've been doing. I started my company in Los Angeles and then we bought a home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. And then it was like, oh my gosh, I guess I might as well just build a community here, right?
Yes,
And then
yes.
our son's up in Colorado. My husband wants to spend time up there. I'm like, well, how about we do some more activity up in Denver? Let's see what will happen. Because if we know the market, we know the market and
Right.
we know everything about the market. So even though I spend most of my time in Santa Fe, I haven't missed a beat in Southern California. If I spend more time in Colorado, I won't miss a beat in either place. So it's a wide, wide, wonderful open world. And I'm happy to know that I've got a new colleague in Scottsdale and I've never had a colleague in Iowa.
Yeah, I know. Well, yeah, I mean, they call us the flyover state. So there's there's not too much crazy going on over here, which is, which is one of the reasons why, my whole journey with Scottsdale started with somebody who hired me in Scottsdale. And then I started revisiting with old family and friends. And my friends were like, you should really open an office here. We need somebody like you. We don't have anybody like you. So yeah, so it's been such a ride, but I love it.
Oh, it's great. You know, I'm corn-fed too. I'm from Missouri. Did you know that?
I did not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Missouri.
So Missouri.
Metropolitan
Yeah, you're
Vermont.
only 4 hours from me. That's only 4 hours away. Yeah.
So very, very good. I'm so glad we have you in our world. If people want to work with you, how do they find you?
Well, I am so glad. I'm so glad. So yeah, if they want to work with me, they just can go to scottsdalematchmaker.com, or they can just listen to my podcast, Dear Matchmaker, or follow me on Instagram or TikTok at Cat Cantrill.
All right, you're a rock star. Thank you so
You're
much for.
a rock star. Thanks, Julie.
Can you guys tell why it is that I keep inviting these amazing people on the show? Because I never get to have 45 minutes with Kat, ever,
Yeah,
ever, except for
never.
today. Beautiful.
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, take all this to heart. Do everything Kat just said, and you go out there and transform me to we for yourself.